June 8, 2024, Lennoxtown, East Dunbartonshire. A typical residential street in the early hours. Parked outside a house, a BT engineer's van sat quietly until a hidden explosive device detonated beneath it. The bomb was packed with petrol and ball bearings rigged with a remote detonator. The resulting explosion forced evacuations, brought in bomb disposal experts, and launched a major police investigation. This wasn't international terrorism. This was a brutal act of revenge, a feud between rival motorcycle gangs, triggered by one man's decision to walk away from one of Scotland's most feared outlaw biker clubs. This film investigates the violent split within Scotland's oldest outlaw motorcycle club, the Blue Angels, and the formation of their breakaway rivals, the Mad Dogs. At the heart of it is Daniel Leandonder, a former senior Blue Angels member whose defection sparked a wave of violence across the country. We'll examine how the conflict escalated from vandalism and arson to bombings, and follow the police investigation that led to Leandonder's conviction for what prosecutors described as domestic terrorism. All accounts are based on verified court records, police reports, and credible news sources. To understand the events of 2024, one must first understand the Blue Angels. Formed in Glasgow in 1963 by Alan Morrison and Billy Stone Gordon, they are considered the oldest outlaw motorcycle club in Europe. Unlike the internationally known Hells Angels in Scotland, it's the Blue Angels who have long dominated the biker landscape. Starting from Glasgow's gang scene, they expanded across Scotland and into England, Belgium, and Spain. Today, their Scottish membership alone is estimated at around 200, spread across multiple chapters. They operate not just as a club, but with the structure and discipline of an organized criminal network. Members wear a winged skull in a German helmet, along with the 1% badge, signaling an outlaw lifestyle. Their insignia has been legally protected since 1997, a symbol of their entrenched presence in Scotland's criminal world. Belgian authorities have formally designated the Blue Angels as a criminal motorcycle gang. In 2020, the funeral of co-founder Alan Morrison in Glasgow attracted over 400 bikers from across Europe, underlining their international reach and the respect, or fear, they command. By 2024, the Blue Angels weren't a fringe group. They were an institution, well-established, powerful, and closely watched by law enforcement. The violence of 2024 began with an act that outlaw motorcycle clubs view as betrayal, a high-ranking member walking away to form a rival group. In 2023, Daniel Leandonder, a longtime Blue Angels member, broke away to form the Mad Dogs Motorcycle Club. He wasn't a low-level rider. He held influence, knew the club's internal workings, and understood their operations. Leandonder's departure was seen as theft of secrets, status, and loyalty. The Mad Dogs didn't keep a low profile. They claimed territory, recruited aggressively, and moved into areas long considered Blue Angels' turf. This challenged not just authority, but identity. The Blue Angels responded quickly. According to court evidence, they began by setting fire to motorcycles belonging to Leandonder's associates. Later, they visited his home to deliver threats. But Leandonder didn't back down. Instead, he escalated. What had started as a biker dispute became a violent campaign that drew in civilians and led to a major terrorism investigation. By early 2024, the rivalry between the two clubs had already led to arson, threats, and vandalism. But on June 8, 2024, the conflict took a deadly turn. The target was David Rowe, a BT engineer with no involvement in club politics. His only connection was that his son was a Blue Angels member. That made him a target. On the night of June 7th, Leandonder and an accomplice planted a homemade bomb beneath Rowe's BT van. The device contained petrol and ball bearings with a copper pipe and remote detonation system designed to cause maximum harm. The next morning, the device exploded. An off-duty firefighter responded to a scene of chaos. Police declared a major incident. Families were evacuated, schools were closed. Bomb disposal teams searched the area for further threats. For the quiet town of Lennoxtown, the blast was a shocking glimpse into the reality of organized criminal violence. An ordinary neighborhood had become a war zone. Police Scotland launched a full-scale terrorism investigation. The complexity of the device and the civilian target made it clear this wasn't a simple gang crime. The turning point came through social media. On the Mad Dog's Facebook page, officers found a post showing Leon Donder and his associate with a Range Rover, the same one captured on a doorbell camera near the bombing site. They had even captioned the post, "Hooked up with this reprobate today." Interesting stuff. Additional evidence included receipts for duct tape and bottles matching those used in the bomb. Forensic testing revealed Leon Donder's DNA and fingerprints on the explosive materials. On July 3, 2024, police arrested Leon Donder at his home, a barge in Kirkintilloch. He immediately confessed to having a sawn-off shotgun, loaded and ready to use. During a related raid, officers found 2 more remote firing systems similar to the one used in the bombing, suggesting preparations for further attacks. Leon Donder told police, "I'm not a Blue Angel anymore. I retired a year ago." When asked about the bombing, he said, "Link the dots. We've been getting attacked all the time. What's a remote detonator? It goes off with a remote. Perhaps it was a shot across the bow." His words showed not remorse, but a willingness to justify terrorism as retaliation. On October 16, 2024, Daniel Leon Donder, 43, appeared at the High Court in Glasgow. He initially denied involvement, but later pled guilty to willful fire-raising and illegal possession of a firearm. Prosecutor Lorraine Glancy KC outlined the planning behind the bombing, its intent to cause harm, and the targeting of an innocent civilian. The case was defined by the Crown as domestic terrorism. The defense, led by John Scullion KC, argued that Leon Donder had been under threat himself. They claimed the bombing was a misguided act of retaliation meant to end the conflict. But the judge, Lord Arthurson, was not convinced. During sentencing, he said, "The background to this offense is somewhat bizarre, a feud between 2 motorcycle clubs. But personal grievances do not justify endangering the public." The court emphasized the dangerous nature of both the bomb and the shotgun. Leon Donder was sentenced to 9 years in prison. This was not a simple gang dispute. It was a targeted campaign of violence that crossed the line into terrorism. It endangered innocent lives, terrorized communities, and exposed the reach and risks of Scotland's outlaw biker scene. What began as a dispute over loyalty became a criminal investigation involving explosives, firearms, and an organized network capable of violence on a serious scale. The events of 2024 serve as a warning. When loyalty turns into betrayal in the world of outlaw motorcycle clubs, the consequences can be explosive, literally. On November 27, 2024, Lord Arthur delivered a decisive sentence: 9 years in prison for Daniel Leon Donder, following the van bombing in Lennoxtown. The judge emphasized that such a significant act of violence, requiring substantial planning and displaying clear escalation in an ongoing gang feud, demanded a strong custodial sentence. Lord Arthur described the bombing as a deliberate and criminally sophisticated attack and made it clear that Scotland's justice system would respond forcefully when gang disputes endangered the public. For Leon Donder, the sentence marked the end of his attempt to challenge the dominance of the Blue Angels and effectively removed him from Scotland's outlaw biker scene. For David Rowe, his family, and the Lennoxtown community, the verdict offered a sense of closure, but not without lingering concerns. Despite the conviction, many questioned whether Leon Donder's imprisonment would truly end the feud between the Blue Angels and the Mad Dogs, or merely delay further retaliation. In the world of outlaw motorcycle clubs, conflicts often persist beyond any one individual, passed on to younger members who continue the cycle of violence. The Leon Donder case is part of a larger trend, a troubling pattern of outlaw motorcycle gang violence in Scotland. Although the van bombing was an extreme escalation, it followed a long-standing culture of retaliation, territorial conflict, and intimidation. Scotland has seen repeated waves of biker-related violence, including arson, weapons possession, and public confrontations, with innocent civilians frequently caught in the crossfire. The Blue Angels, founded in Glasgow in 1963, have been linked to ongoing disputes with rival clubs such as the Nomads, Satan's Slaves, and efforts to block the Outlaws MC from gaining ground in Scotland. What used to be bar fights and turf disputes has evolved. Today's outlaw motorcycle gangs are operating with increasing sophistication, including homemade explosives, remote detonation devices, and military-grade firearms. The van bombing illustrated this shift. The device used by Leon Donder was engineered to kill, and it marked a level of escalation that pushed the conflict into domestic terrorism territory. More worryingly, the target was a civilian, David Rowe, who had no direct involvement in the feud beyond his son's membership in the Blue Angels. This case also underscored how social media and digital footprints have changed modern gang activity. Leon Donder and his associate used platforms like Facebook to communicate and even post about their movements, unknowingly providing investigators with crucial evidence. The days when outlaw clubs operated entirely in the shadows are fading. Now, gang members often document their activities publicly, believing themselves immune from detection, when in fact, they are leaving a trail of evidence that law enforcement can track. David Rowe's experience highlights the broader community impact. He wasn't part of any gang, yet he and his family were targeted. This reflects the risk faced by family members, neighbors, and entire communities when gang violence spills over from criminal circles into public spaces. After the explosion, schools implemented new security protocols, local businesses reported declining foot traffic, and residents expressed fear and uncertainty. The image of police evacuations and bomb disposal squads on a quiet suburban street challenged assumptions that gang violence was a problem isolated to urban areas or specific social groups. While the Leon Donder case was a successful investigation and prosecution, it also exposed the challenges police face in monitoring and containing modern gang violence. These organizations are highly organized, often operating like criminal enterprises with international connections, in this case with ties to clubs in Belgium, Spain, and England. The police relied on a combination of traditional forensics, digital evidence, and counter-terrorism protocols. The use of remote detonation systems, illegal firearms, and the discovery of additional planned devices signaled that this was more than an isolated act. It was part of a broader campaign that could have led to further violence. The conviction set a precedent. Prosecutors treated the attack not as gang violence, but as domestic terrorism, using the full extent of terrorism laws, firearms legislation, and organized crime statutes to secure a meaningful sentence. However, the 9-year sentence prompted some debate. Given the sophistication and potential for civilian casualties, some questioned whether the punishment was severe enough to deter similar attacks in the future. The case raised questions for policymakers about whether current legislation adequately addresses the modern reality of gang violence, which now includes access to military-style tactics and weapons. For the people of Lennoxtown, the bombing was more than a headline. It was a direct threat to their safety. The incident forced families from their homes and caused lasting trauma. It also highlighted the vulnerability of smaller communities in the face of organized crime. The knowledge that a civilian was targeted simply because of a family connection to a motorcycle club left a lasting impact on how residents view their own safety. For David Rowe and his family, life has fundamentally changed, from how they approach daily routines to their sense of security in their own neighborhood. This case demonstrates that Scotland's outlaw biker culture has entered a new phase. The feud between the Blue Angels and Mad Dogs showed how quickly internal conflicts can escalate into threats against public safety, requiring national-level resources and international coordination. Leon Dunder's actions, using remote detonation, targeting civilians, and relying on digital communication, reflect a tactical evolution in biker violence. These tactics mirror those used by terrorist cells, not traditional gangs. The romanticized image of the rebellious biker is now being replaced by the reality of organized, well-armed criminal groups prepared to use violence in any form to protect or assert their status. Leon Dunder's failed attempt to establish a rival organization to the Blue Angels ultimately cost him his freedom. His actions led to a conviction for domestic terrorism, and his group, the Mad Dogs, has effectively ceased to exist without his leadership. Meanwhile, the Blue Angels may have defended their dominance, but at the cost of increased scrutiny from law enforcement. The international attention the case attracted ensures that authorities can no longer treat such gangs as local nuisances. They are now recognized as part of transnational criminal networks. The Leon Donder case has reshaped how Scotland views and responds to outlaw motorcycle gangs. It set a precedent for how terrorism charges can be applied, even in domestic gang-related cases, and reinforced the value of digital surveillance, forensic evidence, and public cooperation. For law enforcement, this case offers a model for future investigations. Treat gangs as organized criminal enterprises, apply appropriate anti-terror laws, and build cases using both physical and digital evidence. For communities, the lesson is clear. Gang violence no longer respects boundaries. It can surface in any town, on any street, and affect anyone. Most importantly, it shows that betrayal and escalation within gang hierarchies no longer just carry internal consequences. They now bring the full weight of the justice system, including terrorism charges, long prison sentences, and national security interventions. In Scotland's evolving biker underworld, the cost of betrayal isn't just exile. It's incarceration, surveillance, and permanent removal from the scene you once helped build.